Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to another episode of our Suzerain Let's Play. So we ended last time with the failure of our passage for the constitutional amendment. The court didn't go with us because we didn't have the wealth to bribe Heron. So we're back to square one. Probably worse than square one. We're probably around -8, which is our current budget situation. There are some good news. Oh wow. Okay, so Valksland and Enolia might go to war. The good news is the railway, finished. I don't see the change on the map though, because according to this, if it's an electric railway, it should have the red lines. Maybe it'll be updated, but we'll see. There are a bunch of news to cover. Oh wow. So he did get removed. Our secret police are moving in. I wonder if Heron's gonna become the Chief Justice. He didn't give us support, yet we still did this. I mean, the goal is to wipe out the old guard, regardless. Who's the next Chief Justice? I like Isabel. She has principle and she's a centrist. Alright, and this is Rumberg's aggression against us. The State Secret Police has successfully eliminated target. That is the news. The long-awaited L1 railway running from Hulsor to Lockhaven had been completed. With Hulsor connected to the country's biggest port in Lockhaven, business in the region are expected to gain a significant boost, even though there are some issues causing it to be delayed. Taurus Holding had delivered its promise, so I'm glad at least it worked out. It was finally happening. Tomorrow will be the grand opening ceremony of the L1 high-speed rail. Though the construction delay had taken its toll on our morale, this was still a proud moment for all of us. Simon and Gus, who had heavily assisted in the project, had come to discuss the ceremony plans with Lucian and myself. Lucian stood up. First of all, this day might have arrived later than expected, but it doesn't change the fact that we are here now. This is still a big success. Congratulations, everyone. To many more projects like this, well done, everyone. Good work. Indeed. Let's move on to our plans for the opening tomorrow. It's been a long time since the last successful infrastructure project. From a public relations point of view, we can certainly capitalize on the occasion. I have a plan on how to do that. If the president accepts, driving the first high-speed train to Lockhaven would be great for our image nationwide. What are your thoughts? I don't support anything beyond the opening ceremony. The railway's completion speaks for itself. I see your point, but involving the president farther could be beneficial for the administration. I think so too, Mr. President. Ooh. We might need a little bit of publicity for ourselves after what's been happening. We need a win. Very well. Sounds fantastic. The president arriving to Lockhaven in the driver's seat will make headlines for sure. Additionally, a large crowd has been invited to the ceremony and will be watching the opening speech. Like the good old campaign days, things were certainly easier back then. On another note, it goes without mentioning that this was a team effort. Beginning with the president who put his trust in me, I want to thank all who were involved in L1. Simon, you deserve the credit. After all, it was you who came up with the project. We had our disagreements, but the important thing was the outcome. The Sordland people have been waiting a long time for this. We will show our best face tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'll make sure our message about improving the countryside gets across. Alright then, we have a lot of work to do. See you tomorrow morning. Once again, good work everyone. The next morning, a stage has been erected inside the central station. It's a sunny day in our usual clouded capital city. The crowd looked quite large. I spotted many party members. We took our places on stage. Signal for Lucian to begin the ceremony. Brothers and sisters of Sordland, I welcome you Hosordians today as a proud servant of this country. Lucian's voice echoed in the station. Thousands of Sordland and USB flags began to wave as loud cheers intensified. Without further ado, I invite the president of Sordland to the stage. People of Sordland, welcome to the opening ceremony of the L1 high-speed railway. The chanting and excitement from the crowd intensified. A large group began singing the national anthem. Trust me, our work is far from over. This project is only the beginning. We built this railway to create economic growth throughout the greater Holsord and Gelsland regions. Thanks to this railway, thousands of new jobs have been and will continue to be created. I want to acknowledge the brilliant mind behind this project, the esteemed Minister of Economy and Tax, Simon Hall. Please come over here. Simon walked behind me. Thanks, Mr. President. Our aim with this project was obvious, to improve the speed and efficiency of our transportation. Once we cut that ribbon and the citizens of Holsord gets on the train, I believe you agree we have succeeded. Simon went on to explain how this railway is a crucial stepping stone on the way to a full sort of economic recovery. Lucian took Simon's place after he's done his speech. Citizens of Holsord, there you have it. As promised, Anton Rayne, the 4th president of Sordland, has delivered. We walked towards the line where the first electric train was waiting. A red ribbon was hanging by the door of the train. Simon handed me an oversized pair of scissors. Cut the ribbon. Congratulations to all. Hopefully this success will lead to many more. It's a good moment indeed. We have helped so many in the countryside. The train's prepared, sir. The journey to Lockhaven should take about 4 hours. The rest of us will be on the train as well. I entered the cab and took a seat with the assistant beside me. The crowd was trying to catch a glimpse of me through the window. Who do you want to travel with in the cab, Mr. President? Oh wow, sensitive question. Lucian, you come. Thank you, Mr. President. It'll be a good journey. We can talk about the reforms on the way as well. The locomotive assistant flipped a few switches and the train began pulling out of the central station. Lucian waved the press photographers as I drove. The new train was in pristine condition. Its electric engine provided the smoothest ride I ever had. After an uneventful 4 hours on board, we were welcomed by a throng of citizens at Lockhaven Station. The railway officially opened to the public right after we left, and thousands began using it. It was a great victory for my administration. And the map is updated. Wonderful. So you can see this becomes an electric rail, the only one in the country. President Rayne opened the long-awaited L1 railway with a grand ceremony. The economy has ticked up one, thanks to the railway. And we do finally finish it. Yeah, in the upcoming years, that's fine. We don't have to be restricted by our term limit, even though we might get removed. The Queen demands past atrocities to be paid. This is gonna be tense. Lucian and I sat in my office waiting for Petr. I was at my desk and he was on the sofa, leg crossed. Sir, did you see the news? Which news? Chief Justice Hawker was found dead this morning. I had time to look over the police report, but I don't buy it. There's something fishy about his death. Oh dear, what do we do with Lucian? I do trust him, but with this matter, let's keep him on our side. Lucian, there's something I need to tell you. I gave the order. He looked surprised for a moment. I see. It was a brief silence. Sir, I don't see why you didn't share such vital information with me. You know you can trust me with anything. In order for me to plan the best strategies for you, I cannot be left in the dark. I won't keep you in the dark again. Thank you, sir. He looked at his watch. Let's talk about this in detail later, sir, preferably together with Mr. Grisner, Carl. This will surely have unforeseen consequences. We'll need to be ready for anything. In any case, now the seat of Mr. Hawker is vacant, the court will be voting on new Chief Justice. Mrs. Edmonds and Mr. Garazzi seem to be the contenders to become the new chief. However, Mrs. Edmonds doesn't have much chance, in my opinion. The Supreme Court would never elect a woman. We can't let them elect Mr. Garazzi. He's no different than Hawker. We'll have to wait and see. However, now there is a vacant position. You must appoint a new justice. I already have compiled a list of candidates for you. Let me see those names. Here, take a look. Either supported me or supported my party. One name stood out, was Gloria Torrey, the speaker. Why her, though? She is an old guard too. I need someone to support me and the legislation in the future. We will pick the most loyal judge. Didier Mai. Was in Lesbia. Despite his close ties to the party and the Seoul administration, he wasn't appointed to High Court's appeal, which he allegedly has asked for numerous times, so he should be loyal to us for appointing him. Mr. Mai is definitely a good choice. He would be a great asset to have inside the Supreme Court. I had vouched for his loyalty. I don't think I want him as Chief Justice. That's not rational. Great, let's move on. Very well, sir. He looked at his watch again. Before I forget, there's another thing. Mr. Hall and I have been working on several possible plans to boost the economy, as is our focus. He's currently compiling a very detailed report with suggested projects. I'll make sure you have a chance to see it soon. He looked at his watch again. Looks like Mr. Vice President's late yet another time. He lowered his voice. I'm slightly concerned about Petr. He seemed to have his mind occupied. He's been late to almost every meeting we had recently. I don't know what's wrong, but I also don't appreciate him being late all the time. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It was Petr. He walked inside with files in both hands. Gentlemen! Why are you so late? We were stuck in traffic around Seoul Square. There was a whole gaggle of ladies trying to organize an illegal march. We had to wait for the police to show up. He placed the files on my table and took out several documents and organized them in front of me. Here's everything just as you asked, our plan for our next reform. You can use your presidential decree to enact reforms now. We have enough political capital. I also brought a list of suggested reforms from our party. What are your thoughts, Anton? Let's go over the documents. You can select up to 3. Okay, so we can only do certain things. Take out the Cult of Seoul, Fair Trade and Competition Committee, protect local industry through new regulation, that's a good one. Gender equality in education, that's also a good one. Amnesty for all Seoul-era political prisoners, that is not our current urgent Rural Education Institute cost a budget. Not everything is free, it seems. Lower retirement age. No, this is something we cannot afford right now. Free prescription medicine, Soldier's Radio and Television Supreme Council. Freedom of speech is protected, but we can create a government agency to protect the independence of media or control it. Allow private prisons, +1 government budget. I need the money. We'll privatize some of the prison assets. Fair trade. And education. Yes. Following a brief discussion, I took notes about my decision. The Fair Trade Commission will be essential in dealing with the monopolies. It was time we establish a body that regulates economic competition. Shouldn't it be? It is time. And there's the privatization of the prison system. Now that's going to be controversial. At least it will lift a burden from the government. He stopped for a moment and looked up as he was trying to figure out which word to use. Looked like either Miss Walda or the First Lady had a huge influence on your other decision. It's about time we went after equal rights for the ladies, if only because all those women marches are starting to get annoying. This will, however, anger a lot of conservatives. Let us not forget the fact that the biggest bulk of our voter aren't socially liberal. This is a risky move right before the election. Half of the country is women, Lucian. Yes, but how many of them are actively involved with these demands for change? It is a mistake to make generalizations because of a vocal minority. But let's move on. Not everything is about votes, Lucian. I understand, sir. Well, we both respect your decision, Anton. But now that everything's settled, I should get to work. We'll catch up soon. Lucian looked at his watch. We actually have 6 more minutes. But very well, let's call it here. Thank you both. Yeah, there's definitely frictions with Petr. Especially since we promised this job to Alvin, if we get re-elected. Commissions to ensure competition and fair trade, ensure unchecked currency capital doesn't make its way to our citizens' quality of product and profit benefit from loyal citizens serving their country. Fair trade, consumer win by higher products. Local producer a fair chance to compete against international company by filing anti-competition lawsuits. For unfair mergers, fairness will be established in our market. We are absolutely shattering qualities. Didier Mai being appointed. Inexperienced. Okay. Private prisons, the beginning of the end. Well, as you can see, not exactly getting praise from the radicals. But we are getting praised by the economics about the private prison. Circling over Stallport, Prime Minister of Lesbia on his visit to Anolia had failed to get off the plane when it landed at Stallport International Airport because he has been too drunk to get off the plane. Interesting. Alvarez is a drunk. Very interesting. Battleship refitted and modernized? Right. Our navy has been upgraded. 15 class battleship been upgraded. Anti-air guns, armor reinforced. Light cruisers and battle cruisers have all been upgraded with the latest technology. That is a pretty efficient change with the money of one budget that we gave to the military. Sword's commercial activity increased. Good. We got an uptick. High-speed rail to see the city for fun. The largest group of visitors are still scientists and students. That is good. Trade talks with the Chancellor of Vectern. Trade talk with the President of Lesbia. Okay, we learned a bit about both of them. Or not about, well, I mean, we know what Vectern wants. Let's do this one first. Midnight was approaching when our delegation boarded the SRS Horseward. The large ship was once the royal yacht of King Egmont himself, but the Order of the Soul, it was repurposed to serve the leaders of Sordland for state visits. We departed from the port of Lockhaven along a few other small escort boat. We entered the luxurious compartments reserved for the head of state. I lay down on the bed to rest my eyes before we arrived at Wilburn, a major city in Vauxland. The Marken Sea was known for its treacherous waters. However, the trip so far has been rather calm and quiet. I couldn't sleep. I went out to the upper deck to have some fresh air. Sea breeze brought a salty and briny smell. I saw Devi leaning over the railing looking at the horizon. I decided to join him. Mr. President, I'm surprised you're still up this late. I could say the same thing about you. Good point. I don't like sleep. I feel like it's a wasted time. After all, almost 1/3 of our lives are spent sleeping. Do you mind if I ask why you can't sleep? Are you also worried about future all the time? I'm an old man, Mr. President. I've been alive for more than 70 years. I spent most of those years worrying about various things, endlessly. What I realized in my time was that worrying is simply a part of life. As the mankind, we are forever gullible. We always think about reaching out for what we don't have. And a part of what we don't have are choices we could have made and their results. Thank you for your wisdom, David. Anytime, Mr. President. It's getting chilly out here. I must go now and try to get some sleep. I'm an old man, after all. I recommend you do the same. Good idea. Have a good night. Went back to my compartment to sleep. The dawn arrived and our ship moored at the busy port of Wilburn. Among the usual flashes from the cameras, we made our way to the train station in a convoy where we took the train to Helm for an uneventful trip. We arrived at the central train station of Helm, the capital city of Vauxland. There were an incredible amount of people waiting for us. I stepped out of the train and immediately flashes went off. Our delegation met with various members of Vauxlandian cabinet. We took the car and arrived at the Royal Palace. Flag of Vauxland and the CSP were waving next to the entrance. Assistants took my belongings and led me to the museum wing. It was there I saw Chancellor Hilgen, he was inspecting a very large painting on the wall. He's a communist revolutionary. I see. Chancellor Hilgo. He turned around. He was a man of small stature with a balding spot and a striking visage. His famous pipe was in his mouth. We shook hands. Mr. Rayne, welcome to Vauxland. It is good to finally meet with you. It's a pleasure to finally meet with you. He gestured towards the painting. This was made in 1776 by the famous Vauxlandian painter Otto Kibner. I looked at the painting. It must have been over 5 meters tall. It was a battle scene. On the left were banners carried by Vaugs. On the right, swords. Countless spears formed a triangle at the center, and the sky was red from blood. What do you think about it? I think that we have come far. After all, we're standing here side by side instead of a battlefield. We can do so much more through unity, Mr. Rayne. We started walking. To me, this painting tells me how far we have come. Swords and Vaugs have had troubles in the past, but looking past that, we are brothers of old. No other two countries understand each other more in the world. It's great to hear these important words coming from you. He nodded and pointed toward another painting that was almost as large as the first one. A burning city was depicted. Looking closer, I recognized it was Conrit. The Great Fire of Conrit. The most shameful event in the entire Valglandian history. The scars of it must be still aching. Past is past. We need to look into the future. I agree completely. Thankfully, we have cut the head of the snake called imperialism here in Valgsland. A guard approached the Chancellor. If you excuse me for 1 minute. Chancellor stepped away with the guard while I looked around. I saw a more recent painting, depicting the upheaval of farmers against aristocrats. What did you say? Hugo's loud voice echoed in the empty halls. Give the miners what they want. As for the director of the company, I want him to face trial for undermining the workers of Valgsland. Relay it to the Minister of Justice at once. No one can exploit our people and expect to get away with it. After receiving the order, the guard hastily left. Hugo came to me. Sorry about that, you know how it is. I definitely do. Revolution is a slow process, Mr. Rayne. Slow but sure. Follow me, we'll have a short breakfast. We made our way to the exquisite dining room. I looked around and everything seemed to be made out of colors of gold, blue, and white. A local delicacy, smoked bear meat, was served with eggs. After a very delicious meal, we sat down on 2 couches. I immediately saw the portrait of Lenin Melanavism staring down at me. So this is like the figurehead for United Cantana, and he's the start of Melanavism. So we can say he's a combination of probably Karl Marx, and maybe Lenin. What can you tell me about Melanav? Ah, you have spotted the portrait. Well, where do I begin? Comrade Melanav is a good friend of mine, although I don't agree with him on every matter. He demands respect. Valgslandian socialism aims to eliminate the powers of the state through promotion of responsibility, freedom, well-being of people. One of our key cornerstones is the de-evolution of society to smaller council with high citizen participation. We believe that the revolution in Valgsland is stable enough that we do not need the vanguardist approach of Melanavism. We are already in the process of such transformation. However, our revolution here in Valgsland owes a great deal to Melanav. He is the father of Melanavism and the symbol of global revolution. Not only is he the first communist revolutionary leader of the world, he managed to unite a whole continent, forming the greatest country in the world. He seems like an interesting person. I would like to meet with him. Perhaps one day you will. An assistant brought in 2 cups of coffee. Let's begin then. He picked up the documents that were beside him on a small ornate coffee table and started going through it. I know the details of the deal ready to be summed up. You want to provide Swordish's tungsten in return for Valgsland's hard-earned money. The details were discussed in between our ministers, but I do have a few questions. What makes you think that Valgsland, as a nation with considerable tungsten reserve, requires Swordish's tungsten? Why should I accept this deal? More trade means more money circulation. Undoubtedly, it will help both our nation's economies. So you want to get rid of the recessions of yours then? A valid point. I've been watching the development over the recent year in Sordland with worry. Since you're so focused on the economic aspect, let me do that too. It sounds like you gain way more than Valgsland by doing this deal. He leaned back in his chair and took another puff from the pipe. There is something you can do for me to make this deal work. I want you to recognize Helsland as Valglandian territory. I won't meddle in the affairs between Valgsland and Nolia. So your decision is to stay neutral. Very well, then you ended your chance of achieving this deal. A pity, really. We could have made history. As the assistant collected the empty glasses, he whispered into Helga's ear. Helga's eye widened and clenched his fist in anger. A Nolian's deal what? He composed himself and smiled at me. Mr. Rayne, I'm afraid you have to excuse me. There is a matter I need to attend to. Is there anything I can help with? Thank you for the offer, but no. Have a good day, enjoy Helm. We shook hands and Hilgen left in a hurry. This was a deal that I was hesitant to make in the beginning because Heron's the leader now. The issue with him is I don't want to be close to the sphere of United Cantana. Notable justice. We added another centrist. If we can get Isabel to win this vote, she could be helpful. Alright, let's go for the real meeting where I want to make things work. After a long whistle, Maroon train started to move. The train had been in service for many years. It had 9 locomotives with special quarters and an office, and as the name implies, is painted with a bright maroon color. Among flashes and cheers, we departed Holsword Central train station. Our destination was Perla, the capital of Lesbia. The historical route we were using was also called the Southern Express. We passed through the Lesbian mountain ranges to the lowlands with a short stop at beautiful Sierra Nevada, where Lesbian security forces joined us. Looking outside the window, the difference of wealth between Valgan and Sierra Nevada was extraordinary. This is our province in the south. I heard a knock on the door to my office on the train and Simon entered. Mr. President. Simon, have a seat. He sat down in a chair in front of my desk. I wanted to have a quick chat about Prime Minister Alvarez and give you a heads up. There's been some rumor about his demeanors in public appearances. Go on. He's known to have met with other state leaders while intoxicated on various occasions. Some even call him an alcoholic. Is this something that could affect the trade deal? Honestly, I don't know. I read this one. Unfit to serve. Why is that? Although his presidency is riddled with these kind of incidents, I also heard he's a shrewd man. Thanks for giving me a heads up. I'm sure we'll be fine, Mr. President. We're almost at Perla. I'll return to my cabinet now. I'll see you when we arrive. A few minutes later, with a long whistle, our train came to a stop. I waved to the crowd from the window. Lots of reporters that flocked over were pushed away by lesbian security guards. We made our way to our car and convoy began a short trip to the Yellow House. The Yellow House was situated at the very center of Perla, in middle of a circular park that was off limit to regular citizens. The park was full of roses on small patches. The convoy came to a stop and made my way to the entrance. The assistant directed me to a room waiting for Prime Minister Alvarez. Wait. I waited around 10 minutes. There was no sign of the Prime Minister, and almost time for our meeting. My chair started to feel uncomfortable. I stood up and walked around looking at the various items in the room. A beautiful golden teapot piqued my interest. Inspect the teapot? While I was touching it, the handle broke off. I looked around. Thankfully, no one was in the room. Leave it next to the teapot. The door opened and Petr Alvarez entered. Although I knew he was one of the youngest state leaders in the world right now, I was still surprised by how tall he looked. At his young age, he was leading one of the strongest countries in Eastern Macopa. He was holding his head like he had a headache and he was stumbling. Upon seeing me, he immediately composed himself. We shook hands. He gestured toward 2 couches. We sat down face to face. President Rayne, welcome to Perla. Good to have you here. I hear a lot about your successes. Thank you. It's good to be here, Mr. Alvarez. I hope you had a nice trip. I smelt the strong odor of alcohol. Don't say anything. Let's begin then. So you're here for the trade deal. What was it about again? Can you remind me? We want to provide Sordish tungsten in return for lesbian capital. Ah, yes, right. Sorry, I've just been very busy lately. You know, being a president makes you pretty busy. So I don't have any issues with that deal, except for there's one problem, he smirked. Waylon. Your decision to defend the border while Shmulak committed war crimes diverted all those refugees to here. Now we have a full-blown refugee crisis in Lesbia, which unfortunately means that the price has gone up, Mr. Rayne. Tell me what you want, Mr. Alvarez. One thing that anyone can possibly ever want out of from Wayland. I want their oil. I'm listening. A lot of oil from Wayland's passing through Sordland, and Swordfish Petroleum owns most of the oil trade in Sordland. Do you see where I'm going with that? Enlighten me. I want you to sell me Swordfish Petroleum, or the deal is off. Ooh. Interesting. You really are a shrewd man, Mr. Alvarez. I take that as a compliment. There's no way I can do that. Then thank you for coming this far to visit Perla. He got up and started making his way to the door. Let him go. On his way to the door, he suddenly turned around. Before I forget, you owe me a teapot. He left the room and an assistant arrived to escort me. So both trade deals did not work. The price is very high for both of them. Get involved into a war with our wife's ethnic country. Very difficult. Back to Petrs House. Do I have to? That house is nothing but trouble. It was a dark, chilly evening when Petr called and asked if we could meet. He gave no details, all he said it was important. I drove alone through a whole sort of suburb until I reached the meeting point he named. 147 Warwick Avenue, number 26, our old campaign headquarters, untouched since the night of the election. This was where everything began. I made my way up the dusty staircase of the office building. The light in the second floor hallway was out, so I used a cigarette lighter to find my way to the wooden door marked 26. I pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The heavy door was always a pain to open. Coming! Petr pushed on the door with all his weight. It made a screeching sound as it opened. Without further ado, I bid you welcome this grand hosted by you. So what does he want? Does he know that we're replacing him? Feeling sentimental yet? I remember it much cleaner. That's what time does to things, my friend. You look a little shabbier yourself than you did back then. Come over here, remember this? He walked over his old desk and pointed at the gramophone that had annoyed our neighbors and kept us company for so many late nights. Petr flipped the switch and it filled the room with swing music from the 20s. I'll be damned, it still works. Are you gonna tell me why we are here? In a bit. He put his hand on the desk and brought a bottle out. He took a swig out of it and passed the bottle to me. Let's drink. That's my boy. He snapped his fingers to the music while going through the items in the room. It looked virtually unchanged since election night. Come on, have a look around. See if it doesn't bring back memories. Check your old desk drawer. Few old coins, pencils, sheets of paper. It was a photograph of me and Monica sitting under a tree. Must have been 10, maybe 15 years ago. We look so young, so happy. Monica would love to see this. Nice find. Look at baby Anton. You didn't have your iconic look. Take the photograph. Storage box. Heavy wrapped safely. Emerald colored statue of a goat, the symbol of Sordland. A gift from Brenda, one of the 53rd election campaign assistant. It will look good on my desk in the palace. Brenda, always sucking up to you. And where did it get her? Seriously, where? I have no idea where she ended up. We'll also take that. And let's look at the records. Favorite album, Mountains by Janet Kurds, a set of plaintive folk songs that made me yearn for the countryside whenever I heard it. You should mail that to Frank so you can learn what real music is. I will take that as well. So what's this all about? I'm good. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm okay. Let's go up to the roof. The view's always amazing from there. Sobbing sound. What's wrong? He's getting divorced, I bet. Oh, even worse. I messed up, Anton. I messed up big time. Ah, it is a divorce. Evelyn's leaving me. She wants a divorce. I'm not surprised. No, I guess you shouldn't be. I've been sleeping with Olivia Suno. Yeah, all that eye glances. I had a feeling about you two. We got careless. I know, I'm so sorry. It's just Evelyn haven't been the same since she lost her job, and Olivia was giving me sultry look from the day I hired her. You were away, I was drunk, one thing led to another. But she's more than just a pretty girl, Anton. She's smart and kind. I think we really connected. I mean, like, right? Like, not love. Like. I know, but we're ending things. I told her it's too unprofessional, and I want Evelyn back. Who else knows besides me and three of you? Nobody, I swear. Well, maybe Lucian, since he knows everything, but you know he'll never spill the beans. There was an edge of desperation in Peter's voice. He took another drink. How many years have we known each other? How many scraps have we gotten ourselves out of? I can handle this, just trust me. I turned to face my friend and vice president. The habits that had gotten him dubbed the bad boy of Swordlish politics when we were young were no longer so charming, coming from a middle-aged man. Yet he's still a capable politician, and I couldn't ignore our long history together. Deep down inside, I feel like this is a good chance for us to create that separation that we need to let him know soon. But I also feel used that he brought us to this place to tell us this. But I don't want to handle this. Like, what am I going to do with Evelyn, him, and Olivia? I'll be blunt. You fix this, or I remove you from office. Yes, Anton, I understand. Thank you so much. Don't mention it. I mean it. Don't mention it. Without waiting for his reaction, I left the rooftop alone and made my way downstairs. On my way out, I grabbed my belongings and took one last look at the office. It's been home to some happy memories for sure. But this visit had permanently killed me of any nostalgia. So basically, it's over. Call Lucian. Yes, Mr. President. I told Lucian everything Peter told me about himself, Evelyn, and Olivia. Thank you for calling me, Mr. President. This serves to confirm some suspicions of my own. We have to meet. What suspicions? I'd rather discuss this in person tomorrow morning in your office, early, before either of the two arrive. Don't bring this up with anyone else. I fear we might have more than a mere dalliance on our hand. Line dropped. I stared at the receiver, wondering what his last statement meant. What was going on that I didn't know about? I went to bed, but couldn't sleep at all. Olivia might be more ambitious than she lets on. Yes, the budget occurred in the third. Yes, this is very troublesome. Our economy is now at 5, so if this converts correctly, we'll be a -2, but I would prefer to be not negative. Hopefully this will help when this finishes. It was early in the morning after my talk with Petr. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon. The Maroon Palace was empty save for a few cleaning staff. I entered my office to find Lucian already waiting for me. "Mr. President, thanks for meeting with me at this hour." "I couldn't sleep anyways." "Very well. I'm pleased that you choose to call me after your conversation with Mr. Vectern last night, although I was already aware of his illicit relationship with Miss Suno." "How did you find out?" "I'll get to that." On its own, given Mr. Vectern's established reputation as something of a playboy, the affair is unlikely to cause much damage. However, a more troubling possibility is brought to light. A recent conversation with Mr. Hailstone, our whistleblower from Rumburg, revealed the presence of a spy within the Maroon Palace. I believe Miss Sono is our Mo. She has been using her relationship with Mr. Vectern to gather information. Oh dear. Tell me more. I can do better than that. I'll show you. Lucian reached into his coat pocket, pulled out an audio tape, and fed it into the reel-to-reel machine on my desk. This was recorded in the palace at 1809, the second day of your visit to Lesbia. He pressed play. I heard Petr and Olivia's voices. "You sure everyone's gone for the day? Relax, Liv. You don't have President Stick up his ass to worry about tonight." Olivia giggled and heard the sounds of kissing, then drinks being poured. I missed you in Benfey. Did he tell you why he decided not to take the deal with Lesbia or Vauxland? He's not interested in forming any alliances? Something about staying as neutral as possible, although that doesn't seem to apply to superpowers. There's talk of a possible cooperation. But enough word talk, Miss Suno. I want you to bend over my desk now. Lucian grimaced and switched the tape off. Curiosity about foreign relations doesn't make one a spy. Perhaps, but why so much curiosity about these particular alliances, if not because they could strengthen us against Rumburg? And that's not all. I found her resume on file. There's a year-long gap between her finishing secretarial school and the beginning of her career. Normally, this will be looked into, but Miss Suno was hired before a background check could be completed by one Petr Vectern. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Right, she worked in the airline. She only started working in the party this year, and then right, this was the weird part, right? We mentioned this when we first read her dossier, that she became the president's secretary after joining the party on the first year from a background in the airline. "Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Galade. I didn't realize you'd be in so early. Can I get some coffee?" Coffee would be great, actually. Olivia left to make coffee. A few minutes later, she came back with 2 cups. "Please have a seat, Miss Suno." Olivia sat. She looked puzzled. "Is something the matter?" "Enough pretending. Your secret is out. I'm not sure what you're talking about." "You know perfectly well." Olivia buried her face in her hand. "I'm so sorry, Mr. President. I was foolish, and Petr was so nice to me. But now it's over now. Nobody ever needs to know." "That's not what the President means, Miss Suno. We are referring to you being an intelligence agent for Rumburg." She sat upright. She looked shocked. "Pardon me, Mr. Glade, but are you feeling all right?" "He's fine. What do you have to say for yourself?" "Mr. President, I understand if you don't want me to keep my job, but why smear me with outlandish accusations?" "Miss Suno, indulge me for a moment. What were you doing in the year 1951? Olivia's face flushed. "If you must know, I was working as a cigarette girl at Porto's. It's a Lockhaven saloon. I was saving up so I could afford my own place in Hosod. Here's the proprietor's number if you need to double check." She scribbled a number on a piece of paper. Lucian snatched it up. "Why were you asking Petr about my alliances?" "To tell the truth, Mr. Rayne, I was hoping to run for office myself someday. I want to make a real difference in the world like Miss Morgna and Miss Walda. But I guess I messed that up by getting involved with Petr. Now they're all going to say I slept my way to the top. Wait, how did you know about the conversation? There was a loud pounding on the door. Petr barged in without waiting for an answer. He was unshaven and wore the same clothes the night before. I came as soon as heard the three of you in here, Anton. What the hell are you doing? I told you I had this under control. Sorry, I had to tell Lucian. Petr took a seat at the far end of the sofa. He looked over Olivia and noticed her troubled expression. God, why involve her? This is my mess. She did nothing wrong. Well, there's a small chance she could be a spy. What? I have reasons to believe she's been relaying information to Rumberg, information that you leaked to her in your carelessness. Lucian unwound his tape and played it again. As Petr listened, his eye widened in disbelief. Lucian, you rat bastard, you bugged my office? Lucian, is this true? How could you? Both Petr and Olivia were glaring at Lucian now. He looked unrepented. I had noticed the vice president's behavior becoming increasingly erratic and unprofessional over the past month. I wanted to get to the root of the cause. So you wiretaped your own goddamn colleague, and for what? Have you been getting off on this, you pervert? Certainly not. I believe that along with Rumberg whistleblower's admission that there's a spy in the palace and certain gaps in Miss Suno's resume, this tape makes a compelling case to investigate the Secretary for Espionage. Whether or not the investigation yield positive results, Mr. Vectern ought to be held responsible for his own willingness to divulge such sensitive information. He ought to stand trial, or at the very least, resign. Petr's jaws dropped. Olivia stood up. If I may, Mr. President, I've been paying attention to what goes on in the palace. Not because I'm some sort of agent, but out of genuine interest. Hard as that may for you to believe, Mr. Galades. She scowled at Lucian, then turned back to me. And from what I've seen, this man had been attempting to undermine your vice president at every turn, perhaps with the goal of replacing Petr himself. Nonsense. Lucian's been nothing but loyal. Loyal to you, it's true. He never could stand me. Lucian frowned. My personal misgivings about Mr. Vectern aside, I would never do anything to harm this administration. Mr. Vectern, on the other hand, has at best committed adultery, and at worst delivers state secrets straight into enemy hands. Who could I believe? Lucian, can I speak to you alone for a moment? What are you going to do, Mr. President? I believe her, but I'm also worried about the possibility. These are things that you can't just go on guts here. We'll investigate her. I appreciate your trust in me. And Mr. Vectern, what will you do about his willingness to compromise Sordland's security at the drop of a pencil skirt? I'll decide once we have the results. Very well, just keep in mind you may need him to shoulder the blame for this. Lucian adjusted his tie. I'll apologize to Miss Suno and tell her this has all been a misunderstanding. We can't have her running away during the investigation. Fine, but I'm warning you, don't spy on your colleagues ever again. Very well, sir. Lucian gave a slight bow as he left the office. I sat by myself for a while, wondering what exactly I set into motion. Definitely troubling. This development has been a nice turn. Very interesting turn. Anyhow, seems like there's no pressing matters except for the result. Wow, that was fast. We'll leave a little cliffhanger. We'll come back and find out about Olivia. Maybe she is just ambitious. I can believe that, but still. It pays to know. So until next time, bye!